Good morning, all. Today I'm going to be presenting the meaning of life, and my name is Nicole Dongo. According to Kierkegaard, the meaning of life can be difficult in life in a world of discrepancy and uncertainty. However, he argues that human beings can have more meaningful existence if they stop living in an aesthetic and superficial lifestyle. Kierkegaard's philosophy is based on Christianism and existentialism, and he argues that we can live a selfless life by machining good use of our freedom. What is Christian philosophy? Christianity is not a system of ideas, but a religion, and for me, a way of salvation. What is existentialism? It's a philosophical movement that stresses the individual's unique position as a self-determining agent responsible for making meaningful, authentic choices in a universe seen as purposeless or irrational. Existentialism does not deny the validity of the basic categories of physics, biology, psychology, and other sciences. It can be defined as the philosophical theory which holds a set of categories based on the norm of authenticity. Categories such as matter, causality, force, function, organism, development, motivation, and so on. These are governed by the norm of authenticity, which is necessary to grasp human existence. The 19th century philosophers Soren Kierkegaard and Friedrich Nietzsche are seen as precursors of the existentialism movement. Kierkegaard's life. Kierkegaard regarded everyone as equal before God under the aspect of eternity. According to Kierkegaard, we can live a selfless life by machining good use of our freedom. Kierkegaard stages that are relevant for my presentation. Kierkegaard's ethics and Kierkegaard's religion. And the third one is Kierkegaard's aesthetics. Kierkegaard's ethics. The term ethics in Kierkegaard's work has more than one meaning. It is used to denote both a limited existence sphere or stage, which is superseded by a higher stage of the religious life, and the second one, an aspect of life which is retained even within the religious life. In this sense, ethics represents the universal or more accurately prevailing social norms. These norms are used as reasons to make sense of or justify an action within a community. But in order to arrive at a position of religious faith, which might entail a theological suspension of the ethical, the individual must embrace the ethical in the first sense, which is a limited existential sphere or stage which is superseded by a higher stage of the religious life. Secondly, the metaethics or normative ethics are cognitivist, having a list of necessary conditions for ethically correct actions. These conditions include the necessity of choosing seriously and inwardly, the commitment to the belief that predictions of good and evil of our action have a truth value, the necessity of choosing what one actually is doing rather than just responding to a situation, and the actions that have to be in accordance with the rules, and these rules are universally applicable to the moral agents. From Kierkegaard's religious perspective, however, the conceptual distinction between good and evil is ultimately dependent not on social norms, but on God. This can mean that God demands a suspension of ethics. This is still ethical in the second sense, since ultimately God's definition of the distinction between good and evil outranks any human society's definition. Existential anxiety. Imagining the consequences of sin, yet to relish the possibilities of freedom, engenders anxiety. To combat this anxiety, individuals must cultivate hope, patience, devotion, and above all, love, always. We need to be aware of our capacity for self-deception and be prepared to suffer for love in order to achieve our spiritual identity and our higher selves. We need to believe that the only way to end this existential crisis anxiety is to have faith in our relationship with God and constantly devote our faith. Kierkegaard's religion stage. Kierkegaard was actually a Protestant who believed in individual responsibility. Faith is the most important task to be achieved by a human being. Only by having faith, an individual has the possibility of becoming their true self. Individuals must let go of our beliefs in virtue of reason, because if we choose faith, we must suspend our reason. In order to believe in something higher than reason, we must believe by the virtue of the absurd. The only way to achieve faith completely is to realize that we are always in sin, because comparing ourselves to God, we are always wrong. Kierkegaard's theory of the meaning of life, according to the two last stages I just mentioned. Having faith in God's will is the only source of true happiness and fulfillment. Human beings should surrender their worldly beliefs and embrace moral values. However, they must be ready and willing to embrace the pain of loneliness to live a more meaningful life. Believing in God is the path for a satisfying life. The meaning of life, according to me, Nicole Dongo. Life is meaningless without faith. I believe that God is inside us. We are all one with God, but I believe Jesus was an enlightened being such as Buddha the Prince was. They both let go of all the superficiality and commodities in order to pursue the higher spiritual selves. And that for me is the meaning of life, constantly working on ourselves in order to be better for us and for our surroundings, and always seek to do the good with the others. Whether you are Christian or from another religion, human beings need to have faith on a superior force in order to have a more meaningful life. Specifically talking about Christianism, moral values and principles of living a meaningful life are stated in the Bible, but each individual can have their own interpretation. In Kierkegaard's case, the principles of God living expressed in the Bible are the answer to the life of meaning. Human beings must pursue other broader and meaningful goals that go beyond personal pleasure. Pleasure should not be our objective in life, and it is important for human beings to question the purpose of their lives from time to time, because it makes one think of ways of making their lives more meaningful. What do I mean when I talk about pleasure? By pleasure, we aren't just talking about sins. Instead of the pursuit of superficial things such as achieving a corporate job just to fulfill the greatness that society has imposed with certain parameters, just to achieve more money and then for buy more pleasures. When in reality, which we should be focusing on achieving a meaningful spiritual life. Thanks to Kierkegaard, I learned that I can live a more meaningful life if I align myself to the moral values and submit to the will of God and be consistent with devoting myself every day to my faith. It is important to constantly think about our purpose in life and fulfill that purpose based on God's will. Thank you, and I hope you like it.